For today's lesson, we're going to be rounding numbers to different place values. I'm going to start with 155, and we're going to be rounding it a couple times, and we're going to see how a number line can help you. So the first thing we're going to do is put 155 into our place value chart. So that would be 100, 5 tens, 5 ones. Now, we're going to decompose this number using the greatest number of tens possible. So what I mean by that is we are going to take this 100 and unbundle it and move it backwards. So I know that 100 is made up of 10 tens. So I can say I have 10 tens make up 100 and 5 tens, which we already have. So I could say that is 15 tens and 5 ones. Now these numbers are equivalent because 15 tens, remember I could bundle 10 of them and move the 1 over, which will create 100. So 155 is the same thing as 15 tens and 5 ones. Now I'm going to decompose this number a little bit further, and I'm going to say that I want to decompose this number using the greatest number of ones that I can. So I know that these 15 tens, I can move those back as well and unbundle them, and they become 150 ones. And plus I have these 5 ones already, so I could say that that is 155 ones. So I've decomposed this number a couple different ways. I have it up here in unit form, 100, 5 tens, 5 ones. I have it broken down, decomposing using the greatest number of tens possible, which would be 15 tens, 5 ones. Then I've decomposed it and using the greatest number of ones possible, so that would be 155 ones. We're going to round to the nearest 10 to begin. So in order to do that, which decomposition do you think would help us the most when we're looking to round to the nearest 10? Would it be the unit form? Would it be where we decomposed using the greatest numbers of tens possible? Or would it be when we decomposed and used the greatest number of ones possible? So we're going to use this middle one where we have the greatest number of tens possible, because this tells me that I'm at least at 15 tens, and if I were to round up, I would go to 16 tens. So I'm going to make a vertical number line, and I'm going to say that at the bottom I have 15 tens. Because remember, we're rounding the number 15 tens and 5 ones. So if I know that this number, 15 tens and 5 ones, is in between 15 tens and 16 tens, what's in the middle of 15 tens and 16 tens? Now to figure that out, let's think about 15 tens. 15 tens would be equivalent to what number? That's 150. 16 tens would be equivalent to 160. So what number is the midpoint between 150 and 160? That would be 155. So I'm looking at my number, 15 tens and 5 ones. That looks a lot like my midpoint, and that is where the number is. So on our number line, 15 tens and 5 ones would be right here at 155. So if I have a number line and I'm rounding, and my number is right there in the middle, it's at the midpoint, does it round up to 16 tens or does it round down to 15 tens? It rounds up to 16 tens. So my answer would be 16 tens or 160. So that would be rounding that number to the nearest tens. And you can see that we used our vertical number line to help us with that. Now let's round to the nearest 100. So let's go back and look at our decomposition. And if I'm looking to round to the nearest hundred, which decomposition helps me round or helps me figure out where I should go? Yeah, it's this first one. So you see I have 100 here. That means on my vertical number line, if I have 155 and I'm rounding to the nearest hundred, I need to start my number line at 100, which is the same thing as 100. And I'm going to round it either down to 100 or up to 200, which we know equals 200. Now let's find the midpoint in this one. So the midpoint would be exactly in between 100 and 200 when I'm rounding to the nearest hundred. That would be 100 and 5 tens. So 105 tens is equal to 150. So now looking at my number line, where does 155 lie? Looking at my midpoint, does it lie on the midpoint, above the midpoint, or below the midpoint? So I can see that in 155, I have 5 ones. In 105 tens, I have 0 ones. So this number is just a little bit bigger, and we're going to say it's about right here. So that's going to be closer to 200. So if I'm rounding 155 to the nearest hundred, it would become 200.